Hello, my name is Grace Hardy and I am an unconventional CEO. I started my first business at 21 and I'm also the host of the Unconventional podcast sponsored by AAT. I thought I would take today to actually tell you a bit more about myself because if you look at the podcast, it's amazing. We have such great guests, but if you were to scroll on YouTube and have a look, you would think, actually, what is the context of this? Who's this random girl sitting interviewing all these amazing people? So I thought I would take the time to actually tell my story. I've also got my trusted Jellycat with me to make this experience more enjoyable because I hate talking about myself. It's something I really struggle with. I love speaking to other people about their journey, but as soon as it comes to mine, I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually terrified. So I thought I would do this with Jellycat in hand to make the experience more enjoyable. I also asked my followers to send me in some questions that they wanted to know about me, so I will be answering those too. Everyone always asks me how I'm able to start a business at such a young age. So for me, I went down the apprenticeship route. I really struggled at school. I have really severe dyslexia, so I really struggle with reading and writing, which are almost fundamental skills that you need to have. I knew that in sixth form, I didn't want to go to university because it felt like I'd be spending 3 years doing the exact same thing in school. And like going to lectures and writing notes and all that sort of stuff just felt so overwhelming to me. I knew that university wasn't the right thing for me, but I didn't know what any other options there were. So I sat down with my mum and I said, I don't want to go to uni. What can I do? And she turned around and she said, Grace, well, you need formal qualifications. So have you thought about an apprenticeship? And I said to her, pretty sure apprenticeships are for people in construction or people that do hairdressing. And she went, don't be so silly. She said, go research and come back to me. I went researching just on Google and I came across loads of different types of apprenticeships. I didn't realise they had them in so many sectors. And at school, I really loved economics, and there was an economics degree apprenticeship. A degree apprenticeship is either a level 6 or a level 7 apprenticeship, which is the equivalent to a uni degree, and a level 7 is the equivalent to a master's, which is amazing. You're getting a free degree, work experience for 3 or 4 years, and you get paid to do it at the same time. It was sort of a no-brainer. I went to go apply for this economics apprenticeship and I got all the way to the assessment centre, which is the final stage, and it was a timed essay. So unfortunately, I didn't get that apprenticeship and I was absolutely gutted. And naively at 17, I thought, right, what is close to economics? Tax. So I started applying for all these tax apprenticeships. It was really late in the year, bearing in mind it was probably late spring, early summer to start in that September. They were all getting filled up. So I started applying for accounting apprenticeships and I got to the assessment centre for a few of them and I got a couple of offers. One of them being from the firm that I picked, a mid-sized firm, and the other one from the Big Four, so KPMG. For me, I was over the moon that KPMG wanted me. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to make it to the Big Four. And then I actually spoke to someone who had dyslexia and went to the Big Four, and I asked them how was the dyslexia support. And they told me from their experiences that the dyslexia support was really quite poor. For me, I do need a lot of help and support, so I decided to choose the mid-tier firm, which had more of a people culture and more support for my dyslexia. I went there for 3 years, got my AAT qualification, and then at the end of the 3 years, I really wanted to go travelling. So I've never taken a gap year or anything like that. I was 21 at the time, and I thought, right, this is the best time for me to go and travel and find myself in Bali. So I handed in my letter of resignation. Then I looked at booking my flight to Bali, but it was rainy season. Rookie error. So I thought, right, what do I do? And then I realised I'm a qualified accountant. Why don't I just set up a little practice for 3 months until it's not rainy season and then go to Bali by myself, travel, live my best life, and then come back and decide what to do then. So I decided to set up Hardy Accounting, which is named after my grandparents, who I'm very lucky in the fact that they paid for my education. And they really were my absolute biggest cheerleaders. And I will be forever grateful to them, and every day I make sure that I make them proud. I set it up, not really thinking a lot of it. I decided to download Instagram and sort of start marketing. Then I moved to TikTok and started posting there. And I started ego posting basically, which is where you just post about yourself, which was a terrible idea because I didn't understand that actually in the world of social media no one really cares about me, and so those posts never did well. It wasn't until I started posting tax tips and savings tips and a little bit about accounting where people were like, okay, now I'm kind of interested. This is really beneficial for me. Let me give this girl a follow and see what else she comes up with. So for me, that's where just my business started growing and growing and growing, because I was listening to people's pain points and answering them. For me personally, when I came into the accounting world, I was really nervous that no one would take me seriously. I'm a young female accountant, and when you picture an accountant, you sort of think of an old white man in a jury suit. And unfortunately, I don't look like that. So I was like, oh my God, no one's going to take me seriously. And then I realised, what if I just make that my USP? I am a young female accountant. And so that's how I grew my client base, which was absolutely amazing. Then I realised I had such passion for financial education. A lot of my clients come to me and they haven't been taught financial education in school. They start their business because they're so passionate about what they do, not because they're passionate about taxes, unless you're me, of course. For me, it's really just bridging that knowledge gap. I never had financial education in school either. I only know what I know now because I worked in finance. And that shouldn't be the case. Everyone should learn basic financial education in school. So I decided to start a podcast interviewing other people that went down an unconventional route to show people that you don't have to go to university to be successful. You can have a career change late in life. You can start that business you've always dreamt of. I love my podcast so much. It's so much fun to do. I get the most amazing people on there. And a sneaky tip for anyone wanting to start a podcast, I love it because people are more likely to say yes to coming on a podcast than yes to taking the time out of a day to have a cup of coffee with you. So I just get amazing people on my podcast and I learn so much from them, and it's so valuable. I also run the Unconventional Academy, where young people and young business owners can go and learn about how to start a business without paying ridiculous amounts of money. It's about the same amount as a Netflix subscription. And that is a little bit about me. So now I'm going to go answer all my questions that my followers sent me. The first question is, what motivates me? I think a lot of my purpose comes from helping people. So my mum was originally a nurse before she went into teaching. I think she's really taught me to help other people before you help yourself. And now I'm addicted to helping people. Even if it's not very financially beneficial for me, I absolutely love doing it. And so at the moment, I'm trying to put through legislation through Parliament to improve financial education, because that helps so many people and will just make the world a little bit of a nicer and better place. Someone asked, do you set a reward for when you achieve a goal? I do, and it's the most girly thing ever. Every time I reach a milestone or have a big win, I will go to Selfridges in London and go up to the kids section and buy myself a new jelly cat as a reward. So behind this camera there is a massive chest of drawers full of jelly cats. So every time I get a sponsorship for my podcast or I hit a new revenue milestone, I go to Selfridges and I buy a jelly cat, and now I've got a plethora of jelly cats. Someone's asked advice for saving. What you need to do before you start saving is, first of all, make sure that you're out of debt. Pay off all of your debts, whether that be monthly or all in one go. Then you need to start putting a small amount of money aside per month for your emergency fund. Your emergency fund is just a bunch of savings so that if everything goes terribly wrong, or your car explodes, or you pop a tyre like I do all the time, you have enough money to cover that. So you can start by putting 50 quid away per month into your emergency fund in a high interest savings account or in an ISA. An ISA is an individual savings account, and you can put up to £20,000 per tax year into an ISA, and when you take out everything, it's completely tax-free. After your emergency fund, then I would think about saving. And the most important thing to do when you're saving is to always have a goal. So no matter if it's a holiday or a car or a house deposit, always make sure you have a goal, because it makes everything so much easier. What I personally do with my savings is I decide whether I'm going to use that money within a year or after a year. So if I use that money within a year, it goes into a high interest savings account, and if I'm going to use that money after 1 year, then I put it into my ISA. One of the questions is, how did you manage to study using textbooks if you're dyslexic? I struggle to memorise as a dyslexic, and obviously I struggle to speak as a dyslexic. So for me, when I was studying, I got all my materials on paper in a big binder. During my apprenticeship, the training provider decided that they wanted to go completely digital, and that is basically my worst nightmare. I learn really well by writing and making mind maps, and I stick everything on my wall so my room becomes like a ginormous book. and I make flashcards, and that's the best way for me to learn. When that came about, I got in touch with my employer and said, look, this is their plan and I can't do it. And I really need my paper materials, otherwise I'm just not going to learn. There are so many helpful resources absolutely everywhere. You need to first find out what kind of learner are you. Do you learn by writing? Are you an auditory learner, a visual learner? And then after that, either go find YouTube videos on the topics that you're struggling with, or write down notes, or rewrite them out, put them on flashcards. You just need to find what works for you and then go from there. What made you take the plunge to quit your day job? For me, I have this really big fear that I would be stuck in corporate and then wake up at 60 years old and realise that I've done nothing meaningful with my life. So when I finished my exams, I realised that was the best time to take a break. And then because I really had nothing to lose, if my business wasn't successful, I could just go back to finding another job. I just took the plunge because I knew it was the best time to do it. I don't have anyone relying on me, I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage, so I knew it was sort of now or never. What are the 3 biggest ways you've changed in the last year? By running a business, I've become way more mature. Most of my friends are at university, so we lead very different lives. They're living their best life at the club, and I'm living my best life behind my MacBook. Definitely pros and cons with that. I think the second way is I've realised the sky's the limit when you're self-employed. I've been able to meet people, go to events and do things that I would have never been able to do ever in my whole corporate life, and that's been such a nice feeling. I also think I've become way more of a hermit, to be honest, and I think all of my friends will agree with me on this one. I'm such a granny now. I will happily work the weekends. I don't really like going out anymore. I'd much rather work on a new project than go to the club. What was my biggest hurdle when I went self-employed? Self-belief, honestly, was a massive hurdle for me. I have very limiting beliefs on myself because of what I've been through when I was younger, and so forcing myself to get over those limiting beliefs and actually say, do you know what, I can do this, has been huge, and it has been really difficult. I personally am in therapy because I know that I need to work on my self-development, and reflection in therapy is a really good way of doing that. Best financial tip you can give to a 24-year-old who started their first job: budget. It's so important you learn how to budget your salary. I mostly say to my clients, do the 50-30-20 rule. So that means 50% on your salary goes on rent and bills, etc. 30% of it goes on needs like food, gym subscription, etc. And then 20% of your salary goes on saving and investing. So building up that emergency fund we were talking about earlier, and then putting some in your savings and some in your ISA. Did you have investors to help start? I know apprenticeships don't pay well. Luckily for me, my apprenticeship did pay quite well. So in my first year of apprenticeship, I was on £20,000. In my second year, I was on 27.5, and on my third year of my apprenticeship, I was on £31,000. For me, I saved a lot of that money because I wanted to buy a house, and so I'd already had a lot of savings, so I knew that my business could not have clients for X amount of months because I had those savings, and that is basically just how I started my business. But what's important to note is that you don't need a lot of money to start a business. You can start a business with absolutely nothing. Some tips for people looking to follow in your footsteps. I would say absolutely just go for it. Reach out to other people that are doing what you're doing. So feel free to drop me a DM. More than happy to help you and answer your questions. But the most difficult step is starting. And once you've started, then you're absolutely fine. Then you're on to a winner. I would also say don't be afraid to put your face and yourself out there. For me, I didn't post my face for the first 2 months I had my social media account because I thought people wouldn't take me seriously as a young female accountant. I've realised now that was my biggest mistake I ever made, and I'd be a lot further if I did that from day one. Well, that is a little bit about me. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to link all of my accounts in the description below, so if you need anything, just feel free to reach out.